within the whole story, because stories can be developed and they can turn to long feature stories based on the first images and sounds from the event. But is it a live thing, mainly live thing, or it can be used for?
I think if you're a mobile journalist, and what we also have called a backpack journalist in the past, because they have so much kit. One of the great things about it is, for example, back in July, a crane fell on an apartment block in Liverpool, and all kinds of chaos. And we had backpack journalist at the scene who was able to grab people and turn what was being said in perhaps the Twitter sphere or on Flickr pictures being posted with I think this has happened, could actually turn those kind of I think this has happened but I'm not sure into yes it has or no it hasn't. The crane driver, for example, crane driver? I guess that's what you call it. Was everybody was like, what? How is he? And there were various things coming up from people saying he's dead, he's escaped without any injuries. And at that point, we'd say to Sam, who's on the ground, this is what people want to know right now. Go and find out. And so she was able to do that. And so I think, for a mobile journalist, the big benefit is actually being the eyes and ears of your audience there and then. And I guess that's the most important part for me.
Is that changing your role as a news editor? I mean, have you got a situation where the news editor is sitting in there and worrying not about just getting a piece of copy back, but worrying about video and audio and how that's related to online, and more like
especially structures that are not used to deal with live thing like newspapers. They have a bigger editorial control over information. How does that happen now?
I think I don't want to take over here, so I'll say very quickly.
You jump in. Go for it.
I think that right now where newspapers are is still very much this is the conversation we're having, and there's an element of moving towards, and we will let you join in with what we've said, and talk about it. The thing with mobile journalism is that you have to change your position completely and say, this is what's being talked about and we want to be a part of it. And that's quite a culture shock, to go from being able to control things and put out the information and then say, yeah, go on, there you are, fill your boots, you can comment under this story, folks. It actually moves away from that to the newspaper being a player within a much wider sort of scene that's going on, and it's going to take a long time, I think, to change that. What do you think?
I think essentially you're right. I mean, it's interesting going from a regional perspective to a national perspective when we have considerably more staff. So you do have people who are just online journalists. So when they get sent out to cover, say, the G20, their thought is, how can I best do that online? Which is great, was a revelation to me, having come from somewhere that actually you've got to juggle that plus getting out the newspaper plus
how soon can you get back from that and write me the other page?
Exactly, because we still got this to do. We still got exactly. And what are you doing out there for 3 hours taking twit pics? I mean, what is that one? So that's the thing, and the sort of, whereas online journalists are out there feeling like they're doing work, a lot of sort of regional journalists are made to feel like they're actually shirking because they're not back in the office writing the stuff up. Exactly. So I think it's a cultural thing, and that's very much what you were saying, and that's going to take a bit of a change, and kind of that cultural change epitomises so much of the cultural change that has to happen in media, and it's tied up with a lot of complex things.
It's interesting what you were saying about newspapers saying this is the conversation that we're having. That process is changing where you ask the audience or the readership, whatever you call them, what they want to talk about, just generally, and make news decisions based almost purely on that.
I like what you said about being a curator of the event rather than
I really enjoyed that on Tuesday. I think it was when the QM came in, and it was great because it felt like the live blog just happened to be on our website, you know, but it was actually a Liverpool thing, and there were people from America and everything posting on there, and it was like you suddenly took your hand off the wheel and it started spinning like mad with all these twit pics and, you know, geotagging and stuff pinging on it. And the more that we could do that, the happier I'd be. I mean, if we could get to a stage where, like Joe was saying, you know, people are actually saying, basically, we'll take over your live blog, you know, fight, fill your boots, you know, because we've got a platform with an established audience, but you may want, you know, you're the people on the ground or you're the experts on this, you know, come and use our kind of built-in audience and do it here.
There's a sort of strange feeling. It's hard to explain, but there's a reaction. A lot of journalists have a really, really positive reaction to going through a live blog or doing that sort of thing, where they feel like they're serving the reader. So the reader saying, "What's going on here? Can you help me? I've heard this protest down the road, and I've got to catch a tube. Am I safe to walk down?" And we'll go, "Right, we need to find out. We'll make a phone call, blah blah blah, and give them the results back." And there was amazing positivity around that whole sort of serving the reader. But it's until you actually do it, I don't think people realise just how enjoyable it is. So, and they kind of think they're doing it already. So it's about sort of having that practical experience and seeing what the difference in that.
It's definitely one of the best learning tools, I think, that I've come across, is just saying to somebody, this is your live blog, you are now responsible, and people are going to start asking you questions, and you know, you cannot leave them hanging on this, and people in the newsroom, they rise to the challenge and they enjoy it as well. And when we did opened up the newsroom on a live blog a few years ago and said, like, this is our day, you know, people who I wouldn't have really expected would have, you know, found the time to do it, really got into it, and you know, from that went on to explore Twitter and things like that, and became far more mobile, to the extent that one of the guys who had his first kind of experience of talking to the audience when somebody asked him what cake he had on his desk that day on our Daily Post live blog, got shot in the face 2 years later and started tweeting about it from the ambulance. You know, it was amazing.
I think the most positive reaction I got through that sort of live blogging experience was from the oldest member of the Post. I'll apologise to him if he's not, but I'm pretty sure he's the oldest member of the Post. And he turned around to me after he had moaned about the idea of doing this live blog, and he did it. And afterwards he turned around and his eyes were bright and he said, "That's just like journalism used to be."
Yeah.
And he's so excited about that, and that was a really positive response.
I must admit, I was reading about in somewhere the other day about the difference between when the typewriters stopped and the big noisy printing presses, and it just became a series of quiet taps on the keyboard. It's so quiet for Dunlop, scarily quiet, and that getting that energy back in and that live newsroom sort of feeling again.
Having a beat and knowing people outside of the office, I think. And I think that's sort of, some of the older journalists have come up from that thing where you were supposed to go around the streets and you were supposed to know the local detectives and you were supposed to go for a drink with them. And this is not exactly the same, obviously. It's not the alcohol, but
it's coffee and stuff.
But there is that communication and that human contact, which is really fires them up.
Drop the coffee, Joe.
I might be. Does anyone else want